So Richard, we are inside our polytunnel, which is full of flies. We just thought we'd talk about some of the theory of this project. So maybe you could start off by telling us why we're interested in this project, what is it that we're trying to achieve, what the benefits are.
Black soldier fly, the larvae are especially good at converting waste into protein. So they will pretty much consume any soft, decaying organic matter, and they can turn it into a reasonably good protein, which we can then feed to animals. So places where they don't have very good access to feed, such as here in Uganda, other places in Africa, parts of Asia, there isn't good access to good feed, and it's often very expensive when they have got access to it. But they do also have often a waste management problem. So they have a lot of organic waste. It spoils very quickly because of the heat. So black soldier fly are perfect for converting that large quantity of waste into something that would be usable as a protein source for their animals.
Right. So to sort of talk about that, I don't know if you can see just out here, there's a sack, and that sack is full of carrots. And they're perfectly good carrots, there's nothing wrong with them, but we got those from the market because the market trader just didn't have any customers, and there's no refrigeration here, there's no way for them to sell it on, so that's basically just dumped because there's no one to buy it. And that's just one small example, and so rather than that food go to waste, we can feed it to these maggots. The maggots we can then feed to animals. And it really helps us with the cycle. But the other thing I think is interesting is, well, maybe we should move outside and we can talk about that. So Rich is just turning our larvae for us, so you can see all the maggots running around. Thought you might like to see that. Well, we love seeing it, and it's quite spectacular at night as well because it's a bit cooler, and so you can just see the steam coming off them because of the heat. And they've definitely got their own smell. I wouldn't say it's particularly bad actually. Sort of like a musty sort of smell. The most of this has been decomposed as well, so there isn't that much sort of rotting fruit smell. So yeah, it's not. I don't think it's particularly unpleasant. The worst smelling part is probably just this bit here, but this is all going to be stored outside at some point and cleaned, so it's a bit more pleasant in here. So we were just talking about some of the differences. That, some of the different ways that black soldier fly is used, particularly in Europe. So what is it about this project that, I know Richard has worked quite a bit with BSF, so what is it about this project that you took your fancy and that you thought you'd be quite happy to be involved in?
Yeah, well, in this project we're particularly wanting to use the live larvae to try and substitute for feed. So we use live maggots, which we give to our fish, and by doing that we can cut down on the amount of feed that we use and cut down on costs. Yeah,
Sorry, this is live action. Yeah, sorry, making him work hard and then interviewing him. Yeah, so that's the point, right? It's that we're using these as live maggots, and not a lot of European projects are looking at using maggots as a feed replacement. So instead of putting in fish meal or soy, which are high in protein, they'll stick in these maggots.
So that's it. Like here we're using the live larvae, and black soldier flies caught the attention of a lot of people all around the world, and in a lot of places in Europe, in America, they've seen the salmon industry, for example, use a lot of fish meal, and fish meal is generally regarded by a lot as unsustainable in its use. Whether that's right or wrong, it's a different matter. And also soybean meal, and soybean protein concentrate, which has been replacing fish meal over the years, also has its sustainability challenges because a lot of it comes from Brazil, particularly if you want GM-free soybean. So
that's Brazil with all the deforestation there, the sort of the pressures on the Amazon rainforest.
Exactly. So a lot of people kind of took note of black soldier flies. Black soldier flies are brilliant. They convert waste into protein. We could do this in the salmon industry. It's a sustainable protein. We can swap out all of this fish meal and all of the soybean protein concentrate and put in black soldier fly instead. what people realise, actually, black soldier fly, although it's really good, it's not great. Black soldier fly protein, the meal is not as good as fish meal in terms of its protein content. It's not as good as soybean protein concentrate.
So it's not a like for like protein.
It's not.
No.
So, you know, like soybean protein concentrate is 60% protein plus fish meal, the top grades can go up to even 70% protein.
Whereas what are we getting here?
Well, it depends on what you feed them, which is like the key thing. Is you know, if you feed a larva on waste, it's probably going to get up to in the 30s protein. That's not good enough for a salmon feed, particularly a salmon feed formulator. Someone who's making the feed for the salmon, but they want to be able to put in a consistent ingredient. They want to know that this black soldier fly meal has the same amount of protein, high protein content, and it's always going to be the same protein content. So you have to feed those larvae on the same substrate all the time, and it has to be good enough so you get a black soldier fly with a high enough protein in it. So people realise, well, inconsistent waste supplies are not good enough. So people then start scrabbling around. So what can we feed black soldier flies to make them really high in protein, so that they're good enough to go into a salmon diet and replace fish meal? So people then started taking all of these byproducts away from the food industry and from the feed industry. You know, things which were already very suitable as a feed ingredient themselves, then started going into black soldier fly. So you're using a feed grade material to create black soldier fly protein, which maybe not even be as good as the original feed supply, which you may have taken away from being a pig feed or a poultry feed, and then start using.
So effective. I mean, we all sort of know this, don't we? That if you're jumping up the food chain, as in you're feeding one thing to another animal, you lose efficiency as you go up. And so it'd be better to take whatever it is that you're feeding, which could be fed directly to pigs, say, or chickens, and do that directly, as opposed to then feeding it into maggots and then feeding it to chickens and pigs. Okay.
And it could be more than 10 to 20 kilograms of your substrate, which is 1 kilogram of black soldier fly. And then you have to remember that black soldier fly, they've got a high moisture content, so then you have to dry them and produce a meal as well. So you're talking about maybe 30 kilograms of substrate to produce 1 kilogram of meal. And then you've completely lost the whole point of the sustainability concept. You're not feeding them waste anymore, you're feeding them a high grade substrate in large quantities to produce quite a small quantity of meal that's probably not as good as the other
stuff that you're wasting.
So
I guess that's what we're trying to say here. So for what, this stuff is truly, it has to be truly waste. That's how I look at it. So I'll just open this barrel, if I can spin it around. You'll see in here, this is pure waste stuff. You see all the fruit flies. This hasn't been shredded yet. There's a bit of plastic, so we're going to do some sorting there, but it's just potato peelings and matoke peelings, which is green bananas, onions, and things like that. You can put dung in here as well, not 100% dung. And so this is stuff that is not being used, it's being chucked. So why not turn it into something that's valuable to farmers here, which is maggots, which how lovely they are coming out. Maggots, which they high in protein. Protein is expensive, as we know, and expensive here, hard to get hold of here. Farmers can use this. So
the other point, of course, is doing this is we are cutting costs because we are using waste and using a larvae live without any extra processing.
Oh yeah,
so
that's
we're
true.
Replacing feed. If you start processing the larvae, you're defatting them, trying to process them into a feed ingredient, and then put them into a commercial feed, you're potentially increasing the costs rather than reducing the costs.
So we don't have any manufacturing costs and sorting and all that good stuff that goes into making feed. So I'll leave Richard shoveling. So there you have it. This is the project, the benefit. You can see these trays of attractants. We're getting those ready, and then we will be starting the process of getting the flies to mate, collecting eggs, putting them in substrate, getting the loop going. And what we'll be providing for farmers is the eggs, because a lot of waste is decentralized here. It's all scattered all over the place. So give the farmers a few eggs, a few grams of eggs, they can get quite a few kilograms of maggots. They can be putting them into trays like this, and they get some maggots for their animals, and it'll really make a big difference here, particularly for smallholders. Hope you enjoyed that. Richard, do you want to say bye to the camera?
Yeah, sure. Bye-bye, everybody. Hope that's given us some food for thought.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. Thank you very much.
Sustainability challenges around it's not quite so simple as some people make out, and actually, you know, it's lost its way a little bit.
Yeah.
And going from something that's very simple into this kind of complex model where you're trying to produce all these meals and oils and defatted meals and everything else. When originally it was all about what can we do with waste? How can we add value to waste? Rather than how can we produce the super maggot from other substrates. We're not trying to produce the super maggot. We're trying to use waste constructively and produce a protein which is of use to somebody and cut costs.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thanks very much, and join us tomorrow for our last day where we say goodbye to Richard, and hopefully we won't have too many tears. Okay, bye.